A year had almost passed. After a year of relentless training, Ked was ready to take the next step. She decided to go out and find some subordinates to follow her in this battle. She had the subordination skill, so she might as well use it. If she had an army of her own, her chances of winning against the Emperor would increase, even if just a little. A small army, even a ragtag group of people, would help her navigate this world and build up her strength. They wouldn't necessarily be her equals in terms of combat strength, but they could help her in other ways. They could scout, gather information, or even just provide moral support. Ked knew that building a strong army would take time and effort. But it was a necessary step in her journey to overthrow the Emperor. She had to make sure she had the right people by her side, people she could trust and who shared her goal of freeing this world from tyranny. She wasn't naive enough to think that everyone would be willing to join her cause. But she would find the people who were. She would find people who believed in her, who believed in a better world, and who were willing to fight for it. Ked knew from the information the Light Man had given her that the Emperor was incredibly powerful. With her current strength, she didn't think she could defeat him. Yes, she had an advantage. Her power system was different from the Emperor's, so he couldn't manipulate or gain control of her skills. That would be a huge problem if he could. So their battle would come down to who had more power, battle skills, trump cards, and experience. It was already clear that the Emperor had more experience, and she couldn't match him in that regard. The only thing she could do was increase her power and battle skills, and find a way to get her hands on some powerful trump cards if she wanted to actually win against the Emperor. Except for some of her trump cards, she was nowhere near ready to face him. For now, Ked was using her fortress as an underground base. She decided to keep it hidden for now. It could be moved once a year, but she wanted to keep a low profile. Her fortress was a good place to train in peace. No one could find her here. She only went out when she needed to get food and water. Otherwise, she stayed inside her fortress, training in the vast underground training ground. Her fortress had a built-in repair system, so if she accidentally destroyed a part of it, it would repair itself over time. She began practicing with her blade, the Crescent Moon. Before, she had only used it to activate Hydra and paralyze Shout. She'd never really used it in combat. She realized that in this world, she would need to learn how to use it. Over time, she improved her skills. She even unlocked another feature of the Crescent Moon in her shield, the Mirror of the Dark Knight. She could temporarily merge them and shape them into any weapon she wanted. There were no limits, and this was a good thing because it gave her more options in battle. Ked started hunting monsters with a katana or a bow. It was a different kind of challenge now that she wasn't playing a game. She was free from the restrictions and limits of the game, so her durability being incredibly high made her body had become extremely strong and tough, and as a result, her speed and strength had also increased dramatically. They were almost equal to her durability now. The first time she went out hunting, she noticed something strange. Her speed had increased to the point that she almost broke the sound barrier. She felt the air rushing past her as she moved, and she could see the shockwaves she was generating with each movement. It was a thrilling and terrifying feeling at the same time. She was a weapon of incredible power, but she still felt like she was just beginning to learn how to use it. A year had passed. Ked gathered her belongings, not much really, just a few monster skins and other odds and ends she could sell for some money. She had learned how to skin monsters and animals, and she had even acquired a skill from it, Butcher. It was a passive skill, technically just for cutting off meat with precision, but it came in handy. She went deep into the forest, hoping to find some kind of road or trail that would lead her to a village or town. She didn't want to go to a city just yet. The risks were too high there. For now, she wanted to find a place with a lower population, where she could observe and learn more about this world without attracting too much attention. She walked for hours, the forest canopy blocking out most of the sunlight. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles and damp earth. She tried to stay alert, listening for any sounds of danger. She was no longer the naive girl who had been summoned to this world. She was a warrior, a hunter, and she had a job to do. Ked continued deeper into the forest, and soon she encountered some weak monsters, goblins and orcs. She dispatched them easily, storing their bodies in her subspace, a kind of pocket dimension where time seemed to stand still. It was her replacement for the item box she had used in the game. The subspace was much larger than the inventory she had been used to, and it could store more items, even large ones. Later, she planned to skin the orc and dismantle it. Orc meat was really tasty, the most delicious she had tried in this world so far. She also planned to take the goblins' ears and teeth, which might sell well. Before she could do any of that, though, she needed to find a small civilization, a village or a town. Doing it in the forest was risky, with so many monsters lurking around. She might get jumped by a pack of monsters while she was working. Dealing with a few weak monsters wasn't a problem, but it was better to be safe than sorry. As darkness descended, Ked found herself still deep in the forest. This was the most dangerous time of day, when monsters became more aggressive at night, their strength doubling from the day. Though the monsters in this area were relatively weak and could be dealt with easily, she wasn't taking any chances. She had no time to waste fighting them. She needed to find a town or village soon. So she climbed a tree and began jumping from tree to tree, avoiding combat and wasting time. She moved with incredible speed, leaping from one branch to another almost immediately after landing. It was effortless, as if she had been doing this for years. Her agility and speed were impressive, a testament to the rigorous training she had undergone in her underground fortress. Ked continued leaping from branch to branch until it was almost sunrise, about an hour away. She was nearing the end of the forest border, and this was the first time she had been out of the forest since arriving in this new world. The open field was beautiful, a landscape of rolling green grass, colorful wildflowers, and scattered trees. It was a stark contrast to the dense, shadowy forest she had been traversing for the past year. But it was a beauty tainted by sadness. This land, as beautiful as it was still ruled by the emperor. And sooner or later, this beautiful landscape would likely disappear under his own hands. But Ked wasn't going to let him. Not in a lifetime. She was going to stop him, free this world from his terror, and then go back home to her own world. It was a daunting task, but she was determined to see it through. She had come too far to give up now. The emperor's reign of terror would end, and this world would know peace again. She would make sure of it. As Ked looked at a road in the distance, she smiled. This meant that there was a civilization nearby. She just hoped it was a village or a small town, not a city or a kingdom. She needed a place to start, somewhere low-key where she could gather information without attracting too much attention. She approached the road and stood at the crossroads, debating which way to go. Should she go to the right or the left? It was a simple decision, but it held a certain weight. She felt a sense of excitement mixed with a touch of apprehension. This was the first step in her journey to defeat the emperor. She had to make the right choices, even if they were small. She had to trust her instincts and follow her path. Ked chose the left side of the road and began walking. She tried to appear casual, but her senses were on high alert. She had been walking for about an hour when she felt it. A presence, a faint echo of something following her. During her training, Ked had learned to sense the presence of living beings and even feel the strength and intentions of opponents. It was a vital skill, allowing her to be always on guard and anticipate danger. The presence she was sensing now had a distinctly hostile air about it, and there were several of them. The strongest among them could probably put up a fight against her in her base form, but they were still relatively weak. Even though they were weaker than her, she was still impressed. It had taken her a while to sense some of them. During her training, she had become so attuned to her surroundings that she could sense even a bug several meters away from her. To be able to hide from her senses for so long meant they were extremely skilled at what they did. Despite knowing they were following her, she continued walking as if she was oblivious to their presence. She wanted to see what they were up to and how far they would go. After a while, they reached a clearing, a small area where a few trees grew in the middle of an open field. At that moment, several figures emerged from the shadows, revealing themselves. Ked smirked. So, they finally decided to come out from hiding, she said to herself, a hint of amusement in her voice. She looked at the figures, her eyes holding a mixture of curiosity and amusement. So, you all finally came out, she said, a slight smile playing on her lips. I was starting to wonder if you were going to follow me all the way to the next town. Ked counted them. There were about 10 of them, all wearing black hoods or scarves, their faces obscured from view. They looked like bandits, straight out of some anime she had watched back in her world. She wasn't surprised. Bandits were common in this kind of world, especially in the more remote areas. So, you knew we were following you? One of them said, his voice gruff and suspicious. Ked chuckled lightly. Well, yeah, the moment I stepped out of the forest, you guys were already following me, she said, her tone matter of fact. The bandits exchanged surprised glances. With their hiding skills, even knights should have taken a while to sense their presence. But this girl had noticed them almost immediately. It was unnerving. Ked wasn't lying. She had taken a while to sense at least 3 of them, but the rest she had managed to sense the moment she stepped out of the forest. So, now, she said, her voice turning serious. She grabbed the hilt of her crescent moon blade, ready to unleash it. She took off her shield, the mirror of the Dark Knight, and took a defensive stance. Should we start this? Don't get cocky, brat, one of the bandits said, his voice laced with anger. Just because you could sense us earlier doesn't mean you're beating us. He charged towards Keed, his sword raised high. Keed easily blocked his sword with her shield. She unsheathed her crescent moonblade and with a swift slice, she severed the man's head clean off. It was her first human kill. She looked at her hands, a strange mixture of emotions flooding through her. She hadn't hesitated to kill this human. Maybe all that practice killing monsters had paid off in some sense. She still felt a little off about killing a human, but she knew she had to do it. She glanced at the remaining 9 bandits, her expression grim. It seemed she had a lot more to do.
Thanks for watching the video, and please like and subscribe for more chapters to come.